Wholeness, welcome. Josh Dippold, and this is another Thought Process Thursday. And this is an event that I do regularly on Thursdays. And I have the description, let's openly explore some thought processes in order to unwind and aid in healing, allowing to surface what needs to be brought up in the moment to work with on both the short-term and more long-term bases. So, when reflecting on this earlier today, I don't know if I've done just what is a thought process in general. What is that? And then what is that in the context of meditation? So I know a lot of times in meditation, thinking gets a bad rap. And, some people have this false notion of, you're supposed to, the whole point is just to completely cut off all thinking. And, I don't think that's how it works a lot of times. But then other people are just like, oh no, it's okay, thinking. And then they go into explaining kind of neurotically without basically that it's not okay, that they shouldn't do it and how to stop it and things like this. So it's a really tricky topic when it comes to meditation. I would agree in most meditation practices, if thoughts are coming up and then one consciously and chooses to kind of forget meditating and then engage in the thought process, well, then that's no longer meditation, then that's thinking. And we do need to think, obviously, from time to time. And actually, depending on what you do, you need to think more than other times. So first thing is, what is the relationship to this? Am I in conflict with thinking? I think when thoughts arise in the mind, am I in conflict and think I've failed at something, either inside meditation or outside meditation? Or the other thing is the other kind of extreme. Am I over identifying with thinking? Is that who I am? I had these tendencies, still do, that, okay, it's really important. I get my identity from my thoughts and cognition, and I can create a lot of amazing things in the world. I can process information. People can respect me for thought leadership and things like this. So, when is this appropriate and when is it not? For my current practice here, within maybe the last year or 2 years, I've been doing this kind of samatha practice where it's just very simple. One object over and over again, the breath, right? As soon as the attention wanders off from the breath, bring it back, bring it back, bring it back, drop whatever else comes up in experience and bring it back. So this is a more exclusive rather than inclusive practice, and it develops samatha, or concentration, leading to cultivating samadhi and kind of a unifying, gathering, centering practice. However, it's not always that simple, right? Because the meditation object, in this case, the breath, is not always accessible. Other times it's very effortless almost to stay with the breathing. So when is thinking necessary? I think when something comes up that needs to be thought about, especially in the context of meditation, the classical instructions are not now, but then set aside time to come back to it later, to actually sit and think and process it cognitively. Of course, emotions can come into this too. And, there's this tendency today to just have other people do our thinking for us, and now ChatGPT is a great resource tool, but actually, just stop that line there. This notion of thinking for oneself, right? To not just listen to others and subscribe to what they say. I'm not saying just disregard everybody. Of course, we need wise friends and teachers, very much so, and lots of study. And it's hard to come up with original things a lot of times because other people have already done this. But what about putting everything away and doing our own thinking on whatever we need to think on. Of course, thought processes, what are those? What does that even mean anyway? And I'm wondering the same thing. Um, there's also a notion of thinking and thoughting. So when we become quiet and still in meditation, we can see thoughts just arising in the mind without me wanting it to happen. Things will just pop up. Thoughts will come up. And that's what a teacher calls thoughting. Now, thinking is actively engaging, and it seems like I'm doing the thinking. I'm choosing a certain topic and then engaging the mind in cognitive processes in whatever topic that may be. Let's take, for an instance, car keys, right? This is a classic meditation exercise. Is you get really calm and peaceful in meditation, and then I ask, where are your car keys? Or your keys, let's just say your keys. And then most everybody will, that will be in kind of a prompting process, an imposition on thinking, and the mind almost cannot help but answer that question internally through thoughts. And thoughts come in images, and they come in words or sounds. And I think most people tend to think in images. However, one of the ones that tend to think more in words. So sometimes I get in trouble because when I talk about things, I don't use a lot of images a lot of times. So people really connect with images when it comes to cognition, thought processes. So this example, the car keys, right? We can all kind of visualize um, where our car keys are, or at least remember the last time we thought about them. So I guess one of the questions is what needs, I just mentioned this earlier, what needs thinking about and what doesn't? I had a teacher not too long ago just interrupt and say, "Oh, I can't think right now. I don't know what happened. I can't think." And so this is not an uncommon thing, right? And in Zen, actually, some of the Zen practice is just to cut off all thinking. So that's where that comes from. I don't know how that's possible organically, or how to give instructions, step by step instructions for doing such a thing, But these koan practice or kangan practice, where they give a teaching or a story or a huge question that just is too big for the mind so much, and it just naturally cuts off our natural way of thinking. This knowing mind, this is how we usually orient ourselves mentally and cognitively in the world, is we're presented with something and we have to know, right? We have to know the answer. We're kind of quizzed throughout our schooling to know, and the pursuit of knowledge. But, what is true knowledge and what is kind of false knowledge, or what is vital, necessary knowledge and what is not? And what is that knowledge leading to? What purpose is it? And same way with information on down the scale. So what kind of information are we looking at? And does it lead to useful knowledge or not? And does that knowledge, can it be transmuted, transformed into wisdom, which is even more important than knowledge? But anyway, going back to cutting off the thinking mind, these big questions like, what is Buddha? Who is Buddha? You know, and there's just, the mind doesn't know what to do or do with that or process that, right? Where is the Buddha now? And the mind just kind of sputters and starts trying to answer that, or who am I? And beyond the traditional sense of, my identity, what I tell story about myself, right? So the classic, or what am I? What is this? That question to me is the most profound one to penetrate the nature of reality, and kind of cut off unnecessary thinking. What is this? It can be anything you direct your attention to, but beyond the name and form of whatever. What is this? So, I mean, I've got this microphone right here, right? But I think, well, it's a microphone. I know what a microphone is. I don't need to know anything else. But like, you could be like a 5-year-old kid. Well, what's a microphone? How does it work? You can break it down into component pieces and lay it on the floor. Then where's the microphone? What is there without a voice and a microphone or something to hook it up to? How does the membrane work? So these are all kind of in a way silly questions, and they don't really need answering. I'm not talking about like on a technical level. If you have the technical know-how to answer these questions, that's great. But it's just, okay, what's behind that? What's the material use for that? Who invented this? How did they come up with the idea of that? What was the purpose for that? And so just inquiring all those things without thinking about or even asking them are contained in the question, what is this? What is this? Look around the space you're in. What is this? What is space? What is this body? What is speech? What is this experience? What's the environment? What is that? Ground. I'm on the floor. I'm on the ground. What is that? What's the ground of being? So all these, I don't know, some people might think it's too much, but all that mystery can be kind of distilled and accessible. Yeah, that brings forth the mystery. And then the mystery doesn't really have a thinking answer. It can be thought about. It's just kind of being in and experiencing it. So some of these bigger questions can point to that. And that's one way to actually penetrate into quieting or cutting off the thought process. And I know some people might get terrified if that happened, especially those who over-identify with thinking and thoughts, that what happens, will I be the same person if for some reason I don't have a thought for like 2 years? What would life be like if there was no thinking for like 2 years? Would I be able to function in the world? Would I be who I am without that? And it's kind of irrational fear, but it can show the depths, I think, of over-identification with that. And I know this notion of meditating that the mind will just naturally tends to quiet down, and there's less, at least for those of us who think in words, less narration. I remember before I started meditating, it was like a sports narrator of every single thing throughout the day. You have to kind of label and give a running narration or commentary on everything that was happening through the day. And that's how some people kind of orient their life, is through this inner narrative and story of what's going on, or especially what's happened in the past, right? Or what I want to be and become in the future. And so what is reality, and who am I without that narrative, without that story, you know? And a lot of these stories are generated through thought processes, and stories aren't bad. That's how we understand the world and ourself in them in a certain way. But realizing that reality is not a story, it's a direct experience. The story can help orient us to that direct experience. It can help share our experiences and relate to others through stories. Um, but the narrative is not the actual reality. It's just one flavor of a representation of a reality. So yeah, I feel examining the narratives we've been provided, the ones we've bought into, the ones where we seemingly have no option to change the narrative, and the ones where we have all kinds of creativity to modify and even create the narrative we want to be into. And why should we be doing that? And what's the best possible way to do that or not do that? Well, it's been 15 minutes. I appreciate you all joining, and hopefully there'll be something to think about here, right? Something to process, or maybe not, maybe to just cut all that off, or some combination thereof. So may all your thought processes be of benefit to you and to others, to all beings everywhere, especially in the long term, whenever such thought processing is wise, helpful, skillful to do.